there, I'm Jen, this is Remembered Reads, and this is going to be a look at my experience selling comics, trades, graphic novels, etc. through mycomicshop.com, which is also known as Lone Star Comics. I've seen a number of questions online from people who are looking to do this and were looking for people to describe their experiences selling comics through that site, so I thought I would put this together and share a bit of that. I took some video of my process of going through different long boxes and going through trades and all of that, and I'm going to share a little bit of that, and then I will go through a discussion of the results and of what kind of communication I had back once the box had been received. One of the things that I think is really funny doing this is that in a lot of cases, the versions of these multiple covers that end up being sellable are the ones that don't have the enhancements. So, for example, this one, which has the holographic cover, is not one that they're interested in buying. But the regular one, you could get $15 for, which is kind of funny. I do like this though, so I'm not disappointed that I bought this whenever I bought it, 20 plus years ago, so hey. Although, hilariously, as soon as I made a video saying that, looking through this other series, which is issues 70 through 80 of X-Men, and the only one that's sellable from that one is the holographic cover one. Which, I don't know, that was an Excalibur crossover. I might want to keep that, so never mind. I suppose what I'm really hoping to do here is thin this down to half the number of long boxes. So, for example, from these two, which were full before I started this process, I'm hoping they can all fit into one box. If not even less, I would really like to be able to go and replace half the boxes with short boxes. That would be great. We'll see how it goes. Alright, let's find out if Alpha Flight is any more in demand than the X-Men 90s books were. I'm going to guess probably not. So it was a no on the 90s books, but let's take a look and see what they think of these 80s ones. And, of course, it turns out that there is a no on all of the old Alpha Flight as well. I don't remember any of these. You'd think you'd remember North Star punching a crocodile, but I do not. Now we get to more of a dilemma of, do I get rid of stuff that I have actual fond memories of, like Excalibur here. For example, I really loved, I was super entertained by Warren Ellis's run on Excalibur, which is what these issues are in. But my sister gave me the reprints. Where are they now? My sister gave me the trades of that run a few years ago. So do I need to keep these old ones? And I certainly don't need to keep the ones from Ben Raab's run, because I didn't even enjoy that. So we've got to figure that out. Starman, I like that. Oh, and my other dilemma is, do I keep the back issues of Preacher? Because I genuinely used to reread those, but I haven't for quite a long time. I think that's... yeah. Strangers in Paradise. Maybe I should get rid of those. Because I mostly bought that because I always lent it to people, because this was... I always found this to be a good kind of gateway drug to comics for friends of mine who weren't into comics, or thought they weren't going to enjoy them. But I was never actually a huge fan of it myself, so I don't need to keep those. Alright, we're looking at Strangers in Paradise now. And, better than some of the others have been so far. Let's see how this goes. Well, it's looking like that first one might have been a fluke. However, The wait times on these are shorter than they are on a lot of the other books I've looked at, so who knows, maybe it's worth hanging on to them. I'm going to see if I can sell them somewhere else. Not buying the Invisibles. Oh, the Minx I might keep. I liked this, and I don't think there was ever... I can't remember if there was ever a trade of this one. I need to look that up. Alright, we're looking at Astro City here, and that's another no. And we're moving on to Transmet, which I believe is going to be another bunch of no's. As it turns out, once Transmet moved to Vertigo, they don't seem to be too in demand, but the ones that came out when there was still the Helix imprint seem to be sellable, so that's interesting. Better luck with some of these smaller books, which I suppose makes sense considering how many people would be buying these versus the big three ones. So after that, I boxed up the books that were acceptable for selling, and there'll be a slideshow of that in the background here. The main question that most people have is, do you get the amount of credit or cash that they have offered on the site? And the answer in my case was it was very close. There was about a $15 difference. Some of that was my own fault. I didn't do enough due diligence in making sure that the specific cover version of some issues was the cover version that I had checked off on their list. Because if you do send the wrong cover version, that doesn't count towards your total. So that's something to watch out for. I wasn't careful enough with it, but keep that in mind. I think the real question that's being asked when it comes to the total value is, do they regrade lower than your estimates? And in my experience, it went both ways. They did grade some issues and some trades lower than I had graded them, but they also graded some higher. So that ultimately basically canceled itself out. And I did feel like they were honest and very transparent about the process. There were notes on each item that was graded in a different way that made it clear why it had been graded in a higher or lower way. So I thought that was good to know. When it came to trades, because personally I was more familiar with grading individual issues versus trades, and I found overall I often graded the trades lower and they were graded higher by them because slight corner damage seems to be less of an issue with them, which makes sense because most people are not bagging and boarding trades, so that is, I would guess, more common damage on trades than it is for individual issues, which a lot of collectors would be more careful with. One thing that did downgrade trades was having a sticker on the back, and because most of mine were purchased in Canada, they did have stickers on them. And in a lot of cases I probably could have taken the stickers off and avoided that if I'd been aware of it, so that's something to keep in mind. So overall, I would call it a fairly positive experience. Now, I did go for the credit option because it was more valuable. The only concern that I would have now, obviously, if you are not interested, if you're selling because you're getting out of comics or because you have inherited comics, that wouldn't be the choice that you would be making. It is not the extreme difference in value between credit and trade that it is for some services, like selling books to pals. There's sometimes almost a double value in going for credit versus cash. In this case, it was a little bit closer, but there is still a significant difference. So if you are someone who is going to continue buying comics and comic-related memorabilia, it's probably more valuable to you to go for the credit, which I did, and I don't know how that's going to go since I've moved to Canada and there's going to be shipping costs in there that there wouldn't have been otherwise. But I did feel like that was the safest, especially because they do not send their cash via PayPal, which most of these style of services, at least that I've used when it comes to things like selling books and other forms of media, they will send you a check. Now, obviously I was moving, so I didn't want that to get lost in the mail, so it was still in my best interest to go for credit, but that's maybe something to keep in mind for yourself. I hope this has been interesting for you, whether you are or aren't looking to sell comics. That's it for now. Ciao.